Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tee to Green podcast. I'm Kevin Sylvester, and we've got the radio crew together. Brian Koziol, Jeff Mietus. We're actually recording this podcast from the Craig Harmon Room at Oak Hill Country Club, where we just completed a preview round of the 2019 PGA Senior Championship that'll be here at Oak Hill. And, of course, in 2023, it'll be the PGA Championship at Oak Hill. And, Jeff, special place to play golf. It was awesome to get an opportunity to play here.
Yeah, it's always exciting when you get a chance to come out to Oak Hill. That's something you jump at. You know, when they called to say, hey, you guys want to play? That's the first thing I'll say is yes, you know. Say no a lot of times, but this was great. The rough, I don't know how these members play it every day, but a neat place to play. A lot of history as you walk these halls and these golf course, and just even the shots you hit into the holes. You can remember the best players in the world hitting shots into these holes and compare yourself to it. It's just a great day, a lot of fun.
Yeah, Brian, we've gotten a chance to play it a few times, and I'm willing to play it some more too.
Yeah, I'll be willing to do that again. Yeah, I mean, today with the weather being what it was, I feel like it was the hardest of the times that I've played it, but just to piggyback on what Jeff said, like, you know, walking up to the green, and I'm picturing myself here in 13 when the PGA was here, and I'm like, oh, I remember, you know, such and such a player hitting a shot up to that level or what. And, you know, when we'll see an event, when you watch it on TV, and, you know, you guys know when you play a course and then you see it on TV, like you have that new appreciation for it. And, you know, this place with the memories and the history, you know, being in this clubhouse, even in this room right now, like you feel like you're in a really special spot.
We did a good job of avoiding the pro shop because we would have spent a ton of money in there. And I just want to say this, Brian and I are available to anybody. If you can't find a partner next year for the Invitational, we'll be there. But listen, we are doing this also the day after the Ryder Cup completed, where Europe won the Ryder Cup back from Team USA and did it in blowout fashion, point-wise. Although there was a time on the course on Sunday in single matches where, okay, you figure out USA had a chance to come back and retain the Ryder Cup. We can sit here and rehash what went wrong in the combinations, and clearly there was something off for Team USA. Although we'll get a quick comment from each of you guys, but I'll just say this. Europe played great and made the putts, and USA didn't, Jeff.
Doesn't it feel like Europe always makes the putts? I feel like they play great. I feel like they play a slightly more inspired brand of golf than we do. I know it's important for our players. I know it's important to make the team. I felt after things went sideways a little bit, someone needed to get going. We didn't have anybody. The last day we had Tony Finau playing great. But other than that, until then, no one was fist pumping. No one was getting the team riled up. I felt we needed a spark. You know, golf's not typically that type of game. You know, you look at a team from Europe, I mean, there's how many different countries represented, how many different cultures represented. They bond together as a team. They get very excited. We all know the story there. But, you know, I felt like we needed one person to take the lead, one of the veterans to take charge and fire somebody up, and I felt like there was just a lack of emotion. They almost seemed burned out. They almost seemed tired. Maybe after the Tour Championship and the hard golf season they had, traveling to Europe. I don't know what it is, but it didn't look inspired, and I felt bad. You know, I know they're trying, but it did not look like they had a lot of fire or a lot of energy to compete.
I don't know how fair it is to judge to say that, you know, these European players love it more. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Justin Thomas, who played in his first Ryder Cup, I thought did everything he possibly could. I thought over the course of the 3 days he was the United States' best player. But, you know, you sit there and think, what are the reasons why they played so poorly? You know, maybe more of the United States team did participate in the week beforehand. More of the European team was off. Europe's playing on a course that the team combined, their 12 members, they played 600 rounds at. Only 3 U.S. players ever even played on that course. So I think there was some confidence going in that maybe Europe had. And let's face it now, it's going to go now more than a quarter of a century where the U.S. just cannot win in Europe. I think, too, you got to think about a piece. These European players play in the U.S. A lot of them live in the U.S. Playing on a U.S. course, like they do it all the time. The reverse, there's a handful of these guys on the U.S. team that never play in Europe, that never play in these conditions. Europe set up the course perfect for them, too. They made it narrow. They made the rough penalizing. And the U.S. players, that long bomb-it-out game, you know, bomb it and chunk it out, like it didn't work at all.
You know, so, we can keep going about what happened, what match there, and this, you know, Tiger and Phil not leading the way there, Tiger going 0-4, and with 21 losses, and Phil, with just a horrible way for it to end for him. But let's move forward here. Let's spend some time in all right, so what does Team USA need to do, or do they need to do anything, Jeff? I mean, is there a need to press the panic button here?
I don't think there's a need to press the panic button. I feel like the American team was just as talented, if not more so. I think they were the favorites going into on the betting line. I think once they get back to their home venue, the American crowd pumping them up, you get that motivation. You know how it is when a crowd is behind you. It sharpens your focus. I'm not worried about the team. Once these things go sideways, we've all played golf. Once it goes sideways, I've coached college golf, team golf a lot. There is a team connection there, and we all feel the same things as a team. I think once they get back to the States, once they get to an event, in their home country, people cheering for every good shot. It's hard when you hit a good shot and they boo you or don't cheer. There's a smattering of applause. Hard to get momentum. Hard to get your mojo going. I wouldn't push the panic button. I think it was an excellent team. They had a bad week. Maybe I'd change, maybe the travel has something to do with it. There might be some things to look at there. Mr. Furyk, as fine a gentleman as he is, he didn't strike me as a dynamic leader of men out there when he was, you'd see him pat people on the back, but there's nothing to get guys going. There didn't seem like that. Some of the pairings there were some questions with. I guess that's easy to say afterwards, right? But I wouldn't push the panic button by any means at this point. I think they're in good shape, and I think it's a tremendously talented team, and they're going to be tremendously motivated next time.
Well, you look at what happened after the last two losses this year and in 2014. 2014, you had Mickelson really coming out after the captain, Tom Watson, and then that's kind of where the task force sort of thing came all about. This year, we're hearing a lot of scuttlebutt about Patrick Reed and some of the things that he's upset about, that Furyk didn't put him with Spieth, and is Spieth and Reed, are they headbutting? No one seems that they think, at least the images, that pairing people with Bubba is tough, pairing people with Reed is tough, maybe even pairing people with Tiger is tough. Europe, you don't seem to have that at all. They seem to embrace that whoever I'm with, and if I'm going to sit, I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader in the crowd. I don't think that we have that buy-in as much with the U.S. team. Is it fixable? I think it's pretty fixable. I mean, it's just, are you going to buy into the team mentality? And my bet, if we look forward, if this event we know is coming up in Whistling Straits, my bet is that Steve Stricker might get named the captain with it being in Wisconsin. We know Stricker's got a really strong relationship with Tiger. Tiger's got a ton of influence with these younger guys like Spieth and Thomas and Fowler. And I think they'll figure it out, because I think Stricker and Woods are smart guys, whether Tiger's playing or not. I think they'll figure it out. But they got to buy into the team mentality. I think if you've got Thomas and Spieth and Fowler leading the way, I mean, who's the biggest team player of all out there on the PGA Tour, Kev? Who do you see all the time? It's Fowler. He's out there cheering on guys. I think if they kind of buy into that mentality like Europe does, I think it'll fix itself, because as Jeff said, there's clearly enough talent for them to win.
Yeah, I think, a couple things leading up to this Ryder Cup, there was a lot of controversy, if you will, on picking Phil Mickelson. All right, and I didn't think it was that controversial of a pick, because I thought it was a slam dunk. It's his last Ryder Cup as a player, unless he pulls something miraculously here when he's 50 to play at Whistling Straits. But I felt like he had a good year. He faded towards the end. Some of that might be fatigue. He was 48 years old, but I felt like Phil Mickelson needed to be on that team, and I don't think he was. Maybe he didn't even feel like a big part of the team, playing one match out of the first four, and then going out there and signals and gets draws Molinari, right? The hottest golfer in the world. So I think that didn't have a lot of energy, if you will, to it. Tiger and Reed, I thought, was an interesting combination. I was surprised he didn't keep Reed and Spieth together, because I think Justin Thomas would play well with anybody. Right. I think Spieth would too, frankly. But why you broke that duo up, I thought that was kind of interesting. And pairing up with Bubba's a different kind of player. He's a different kind of guy. DeChambeau's a different kind of player, different kind of guy. And I thought Sergio Garcia made an interesting comment in his post-round interview, which, by the way, he's won the most points ever for a European player. Pretty incredible for Sergio. And there's a lot of talk like Sergio shouldn't be on the team, but the guy is Mr. Ryder Cup, if you will, surpassing Nick Faldo. But he made a comment that, like, well, Europe, we have so many different combinations we can use it. I don't think that's the case for America. I think, the chemistry, right? And even that pod system, like-minded guys, like style of play. I think Europeans are like, okay, I'm playing with you. I'm going to play your style. I don't think that it happens in America.
But we still got smoke. So we can parse out a shot here or there or a point here or there. The U.S. didn't rise to the occasion in this. And it seems it's a pattern. 25 years, I think that's what you said, Brian, since we've last won on European soil. So there's obviously a home court advantage, and I think the U.S. will have a home court advantage when it comes back here in 2 years. And I think players like Justin Thomas played great. Jordan Spieth, he didn't have his A game. Everybody, there were guys that played very well. Koepka, how good did he play, I thought?
Let me jump in here, Jeff, because you just said so-and-so didn't have their A game. How many guys had their A game going into the Ryder Cup? Tiger, because he won the Tour Championship. Right. But Tiger looked tired to me in Boston. He wins. Like, you got to think about the emotional, to get fired up again for the Ryder Cup. I'm sure that's difficult after winning the Tour Championship. DeChambeau didn't have his A game going into it. He won the first 2 weeks, but then he fell off there. Mickelson was struggling going in. Reed was struggling going in. Justin Thomas, I don't want to say was struggling. He finished top 5, FedEx Cup. But some of these guys, their best moments were earlier in the golf season. They weren't towards the end there.
Yeah, but let's look at Garcia. Garcia might have his worst career year. Missed the cut at all 4 majors, and he got 2 wins. Stenson hadn't played in a few weeks. He played great. Other than Justin Rose,
and Rory McIlroy didn't play great for Europe.
Yeah, other than Justin Rose, who on Europe's team has really been really doing some great things, and you have to kind of search, and you look at some of these other guys that played good for them, and Molinari and Fleetwood, they had rock solid years, and they just followed it right through. They were the best pairing, they were the best 2 players in the tournament, and they clearly were a huge reason why Europe won.
Yeah, they certainly were. Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, my last comment, I guess, would be that I know Jim Furyk. He's a respected player. He's not a popular player with his peers. And, if something goes sideways after the first round or you don't like a pairing, you can see guys being abrasive. But it shouldn't affect how you play once you get out on the golf course. You're a competitor. You're out there. You're grinding your face off. You're trying to do the best. You're representing your country. So all those things to me are secondary. I think, that we just went through the Tour Championship season, a long tour season, get on a plane, fly over to Europe. Everybody's cheering for the other team. It's a tough situation. It's always going to be a tough situation. Let's just hope it's that tough when they come over here to Whistling Straits.
My last thought is the calendar change might solve itself. A lot of what we're talking about is who came in hot, who came in cold, who's tired, who's fatigued, who's too old. Well, next year with the calendar, they're going to be finishing the tour schedule much earlier. So when we look forward to next Ryder Cups beyond that, there'll be breaks. There'll be more time for travel. There'll be more time to work on your game if you've been having, an off period. So I think maybe a lot of these things that we're talking about, the new calendar, the PGA Tour calendar, might benefit Team USA.
I think you're right about that, because they will have some time in between. So I think that will help. I also will think will help is now the next wave. The guys like Xander Schauffele, who some said should have been on the team. He could have played his way on. He did not. I think he's got to step forward, make the President's Cup team next year, and get a taste of that international competition to join his class of 2011 high school classmates, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, to start playing in those events. Be interesting to see if Brandt Snedeker can regain form coming off injury and make teams again. Can Kevin Kisner, who was another guy kind of on the bubble in his mid-30s, can he push forward? Because he's a fiery kind of guy there to go through and make this team. So I think those are the kind of players that got to come forward. And then there's the younger ones, Patrick Cantlay, who's an excellent player. You need these players to step forward and replace some of the old guys. I'm talking about the Phil Mickelsons of the world. Kuchar and Zach Johnson didn't make it. You've got to find guys who can come through and play for Team USA and have some fire in the belly, Jeff. I think that's, a guy like Brooks Koepka, who's a fabulous player, we got to see some emotion out of there. You got to do something to fire up. And I think some of USA's best players didn't come through with their best game. Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, maybe they need to be the leaders.
It's hard to get your fist pumping when you make a 30-footer for your team and no one makes a sound in the crowd, too. And Brooks Koepka's he's a stoic guy. I think we have a good, solid core going forward, though, for these types of events. Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, all these guys
Tony Finau
played great. So I think going forward, you add those names, and you've got a young bunch of studs moving up. And I see nothing but good things for the Ryder Cup team going forward, because I think, Tiger and those guys, DeChambeau, these are, to me, they're kind of outliers right now for this team. And, we're in the rebuild process maybe, and we're rebuilding, and we're going to have a great young core going forward. I think the next 10, 15 years are very promising for the U.S. in the Ryder Cup.
And the last 25 years of United States golf have been headlined by Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, and the Ryder Cup era has been overall, you would say, a failing grade during their time. And it could have been just that whether or not guys really meshed with those two. Ultimately, Tiger and Phil themselves during that era didn't mesh between them two. We know now currently maybe that's changing, but maybe as Tiger and Phil move on from Ryder Cup stuff, maybe that team aspect that we talked about that Europe's so good with, maybe that will be easier to come by.
All right, great stuff. Jeff Mietus, Brian Koziol. I'm Kevin Sylvester. Make sure you rate us in the iTunes store. Give us a good rating, if you will, on our podcast. Make sure you subscribe. The Tee to Green podcast right here on tdgreen.golf. Make sure you check out that website, tdgreen.golf. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another podcast, the Tee to Green podcast. Thanks for listening.